So in these two cases, the one on the left that you're seeing is actually a webisodic series called In Gale We Trust that has been completed in partnership, and I'll launch the browser here so you can get a little bit more example. I also do believe that we'll be able to provide all of the relevant links here, so you don't have to worry about writing down and trying to see the small print up at the top of my browser. But In Gale We Trust was actually a project that was done between the American Family Insurance and NBC Universal. And they created this really dynamic site or webisodic series in which they took a pretty considerable risk on. American Family Insurance, if you look at some of the research, funneled a considerable amount of their marketing budget to creating this type of content, since they realized that going up against some of the larger insurance carriers was going to be relatively difficult with such a an unknown organization as theirs. So as you go through those, it really is an incredibly engaging storyline of everybody's lives. So if you look at, Wisteria people's lives in Wisteria Lane, and of course in Desperate Housewives, to theories and themes from the Modern Family, you can really identify with various characters, and it's really taken off. It's done a considerable amount of job of just increasing awareness. And again, what you're starting to see is these incredible partnerships between unknown insurance carriers and huge media and entertainment conglomerates like NBC coming together to create really, really engaging content. The second one was a recent video that was done, and again, both of these you'll see are borrowing from popular stories and film and television. I mentioned Desperate Housewives. In this particular case, Yale University and its students particularly decided to borrow from popular film and television series like Glee and High School Musical to create this incredibly engaging video series on the campus. It features various celebrities and is just an incredibly engaging content piece. It's a relatively long, it's 16 minutes and 49 seconds, but in the case of Yale, if you look at some of the videos down on the right-hand side of your screen and the number of views that they typically get when it comes to creating content for their YouTube channel, you'll see quickly that they nowhere near hit the mark that this particular video was able to, and you'll see right here that we're looking at approximately 634,000 views that they were able to garner within 1 year. So some of us brands might not see that as a huge opportunity, but if you looked to that in direct correlation to the typical views that they saw, it worked. It was an incredibly amazing campaign that they were able to effectively turn into something that meant extreme awareness, at least in their field. Moving on, so the first theory was really about creating, again, more video-based webisodic type content. In this particular case, we're going to turn into the conversation a little bit more into how do we really power up our community. So how do we leverage looking at audiences that typically wouldn't be looking at us for consumer behavior, for acquisition or using our products or services, or that already are. So in this particular case on the far left, State Farm did an incredible job of creating ambassadorships or celebrityism out of their current customers by creating this campaign that was called Thanks Someone for Being There. And what they did is they created an incredibly interactive format that allowed people to share stories. So when we talk about, creating a quick dashboard that can demonstrate the number of fans that are out there talking about your brand, and it looks like, oh, there we go. It's going to load here in a second, of creating really, really interesting ways of demonstrating the amount of power that you have within your community. This was something that was really, really cool, and you may not be able to see the animation as well, but if you go to the site right now, you'll see the ability to search for different themes, to search by common tags, getting this kind of cloud ability to search by popular themes, as well as various areas, and we talked about creating a soapbox for your fans. in this particular case, State Farm is able to feature those that they think are really compelling stories. And if we click on one of these, you'll see that some of these are simple updates of content and images. Other ones are actual videos that have been posted, like a personal thank you from Adrian here in the left-hand corner. Again, I'm not sure how fast this will load on your guys' screen, but you'll see that a video pops up that you can review. So just numbers of different ways of content, and you'll notice that the common theme here is that the brand is essentially really taking a backseat and really instead focusing its efforts and the experience on the individuals themselves. So a great way, and you can also look in different modes of exploring new ways of really engaging and rewarding your current teams. And you'll see here that a lot of people are thanking other individuals, and that wasn't done by accident. It was to essentially expose the brand of State Farm to new audiences that they normally didn't have a relationship with. So in a very indirect way. In the case of the 50 million pound challenge, again, this was a State Farm initially ran project that now has kind of taken on its own, but the 50 million pound challenge is actually brought to you by Dr. Ian Smith from Celebrity Fit Club. And it was a really engaging, or it is a really engaging site that EMG is currently being able to help manage and own, that allows different individuals to come together, create teams, and inspire one another to help become more fit. So in this particular case, you see things like a 30-day meal plan, a journal. You can explore various teams that are currently in the lead. But the most important takeaway here, I think, is to look at this dashboard. And you'll see this come up more and more on community-based sites like this, that there is a dashboard. You're actually creating goals for your community. So whether it's raising funding, whether it's reaching out, whether it's thanking somebody like we saw in the other State Farm project, it's really important to feel like the community has common goals that they can get behind when creating this type of entertaining content for them. The other thing is resources, so making sure that not only that you've gotten them there, you've built awareness, but that you give them the type of function that they need to reach out to others is critical. So if you actually join this site and become a team or start a team, you'll see a lot of the unique things that were borrowed from various types of sites to creating a more engaging experience. And then finally, we talk a lot about also these really large communities that State Farm, of course, is trying to reach. But we can also talk a little bit about the niche community. So if there are very specific areas or customers that you're trying to reach, but you're not quite sure, broadcast is, of course, way too expensive. Even direct response and pay-per-click advertising is sometimes too costly. What type of site might you be able to make for that particular community? And this is just an example that was originally brought to us as a hypothetical by Caltech. And Caltech had a very specific certificate program that it had for technology marketers. So when we're looking at the overall population of certificate programs, this was very, very, very minute. And it almost had to become scalpel-like in the precision that was needed in order to reach this type of market. And so what we basically had proposed was to develop out a community specifically for technology marketing centers. Sometimes your best idea starts with searching, and so we really searched to see what type of content out there was for technology marketers, and we realized there was none. So a couple that were led by one specific faculty member and then got a few alumni of the program to come together and create this really engaging content site of which there's relevant topics that are covered. And there's two layers. There was a layer that was a public layer, and then there was a layer that was more exclusive to be able to ask questions and engage in the content, of which you actually had to become an alumni of the program. So this idea of exclusivity, again, is something that you'll see pop up a little bit more as we create different types of content. So when we look at this, in this particular case, sure, you can engage with the content on 50 Million Pound Challenge, but you're really not going to get your value unless you actually become a member. So how do you create those two various layers is very important. The next part is how do you power up the community. So you've actually, and we touched on this a little bit about challenging them and creating these dashboards or specific things that they might want to engage in and can be measured against their peers. But these are just a couple examples of ways that you can simply, and I'll actually launch, it looks like to give the backpack back, but Staples recently launched a Give backpack where you could follow, simply by following and becoming a fan of the 3 celebrities you see here, Nick Cannon, Kelly Pickler, and I forget the name of this guy, Drake. But you immediately, just by simply liking, donate $1 towards an inner city youth or somebody that is really struggling with affording school supplies. So again, very simple way. Definitely would search for this particular campaign if you can. The Red campaign is another incredible and of course much larger than any of us would probably ever use, but an incredible way of really supplying content for a number of different type of customers, some that are coming here simply to act, others that are looking to just give back simply by buying a product that has been sponsored or promoted within Red. So as you really start to explore, you'll start to see various types of content, from product promotions to things like the Lazar Effect, an actual film that was brought to the site and created between a partnership, again, with HBO and a nonprofit organization. So this type of example is, again, how are they using distribution channels that are either existing like HBO or that are free like YouTube to create a platform that they can get this type of incredibly impactful content out to. And then finally, again, what I was trying to show was extreme examples of different types of ways that people are empowering their community using really engaging and fun content. We recently had the opportunity to work on a project for UCI here locally in their capital campaign. And one of the things as we explore, and if you take some time to explore the site, is how we're integrating not only a way for people to explore the content in a different way. Typically when people from a nonprofit are asking for money, they really talk about the impact that it has directly on whoever they're trying to impact. So whether it's healthcare provided or whether it's a specific student or they're trying to raise money for a building. In this particular case, we try to spin it a little bit so that people are actually looking for information based upon what they feel is important in their lives and how they'd like to give back. So even the content structure of the site is different. We talk a little bit as you explore things like the energy and the environment, becoming part of a global village campus. So as they're looking to introduce different types of ways that people can give back, they're showing different ways of which they can explore that information. Also, you'll see that, of course, the ability to share information is ever more important. If they're going to create really vibrant, engaging content that they'd like people to explore, then of course it is also as critical to talk about how they'll share that content. So just making sure that you have that checklist of the different major distribution channels that you're posting to. Then we'll get into a theme called personalization and experiential entertainment content. In these two particular cases, if you go to the National Guard, this idea of personalizing marketing content has become really important in especially attracting a younger audience. Obviously, whether it's your smartphone, your computer, your television channels and things like DVD-R allows you to completely personalize the type of content that you want to receive and how you receive it. In this particular case, the National Guard has just recently launched, oops, I skipped ahead, has launched a site that allows you to completely personalize in one click, and that's using a Facebook Connect app, to be able to personalize the entire experience of what a weekend might look like for you in the National Guard. So we'll talk a little bit about that choose your own adventure theme that consumers really want to feel like they can identify with specific other customers, or in this particular case, other members of the National Guard, in order to begin to understand how this might look like for them. So this idea of projecting themselves into your world becomes somewhat important. In the case of the other project that you see featured, again, completely flip side, a little known college called the University of Laverne